Vasishta continued. When the mind of Vitahavya had become unattached and totally free through the practice of enquiry, there arose in him noble qualities like friendliness, etc. This was one of the unusual features of the story of Vitahavya. He was completely positive. He was positive even towards his own mental, emotional tendencies, towards his own cravings even. Rama asked, when the mind has been dissolved in Brahman the Absolute, in whom do qualities like friendliness arise? Now, what I said at the end of the previous chapter applies to this one as well. We're not getting the supreme yoga here. We're not getting the yoga of self-inquiry. We're getting answers in terms of standard yogic notions, which we should weigh up accordingly. Some of these yogic notions are to do with whether they're to do with being liberated in the body or being liberated after the body's fallen away. There's arguments about which liberation is better. And we also get yogic talk of the death of the mind. So these things seem to indicate that we're getting a limited exposition here. So let's have a look. Vasishta answered, O Ram, there are two types of death of the mind. One is where the form of the mind remains, and the other is where even the form ceases to be. The former happens when the sage is still alive, and the latter happens when he is disembodied. We've explored this before, and we don't need to be concerned with this distinction. The body is only a notion, and when we let go of that notion, we've let go of notions of birth and death. So this distinction, from the point of view of self-inquiry, is totally irrelevant. The existence of the mind causes misery, and its cessation brings joy. This is like saying that money is the root of all evil. It's not money that's the root of all evil, it's attachment to money that's the root of all evil. And it's the same with the mind. It's not the existence of the mind that causes misery. It's our identification, it's awareness's identification with the mind. Awareness allows itself to get sucked into the vortex of the mind. But this is the yogic way of looking at things, and it's a limited way of looking at things. The mind that is heavily conditioned and caught in its own conditioning brings about repeated births. We don't need to worry again about repeated births. We're just getting involved in the patterns of this vortex of the mind over and over again. That's the conditioned mind. Such a mind brings unhappiness. That which regards as my own the qualities that are beginningless is the jiva. This is the individual psyche. It arises in the mind which has no self-knowledge and which is therefore unhappy. A typical mind believes in its own notions about the world and about itself. It can be happy at times and it's unhappy most of the time. As long as there is mind, there is no cessation of sorrow. When the mind ceases, the world appearance also ceases to be. The mind is the seat for misery. Again, this is the limited yogic way of talking. Cessation of the mind. It's cessation of attachment to the notions of the mind that we're looking for. We need notions. We need notions to operate in the conventional mode of reality. But the conventional mode of reality is not reality. So we need to appreciate notions as notions, appreciate awareness as awareness, as our underlying reality. I shall now describe how the mind ceases to be. When both happiness and unhappiness do not divert a man from his utter equanimity, then know that his mind is dead. A dead mind is as much use as a amputated hand. He in whom the notions, this I am and this I am not, do not arise, thus limiting his consciousness, his mind is dead. Okay, that's good. We want to free ourselves of these notions. And if you're free of these notions, they won't arise. So we could describe then that mind is dead. He in whom the very notions of calamity, poverty, elation, pride, dullness and excitement do not arise, his mind is dead and he is liberated while living. We've got to be careful with this. It's alright if notions arise. Notions arise naturally. But it's identification with these notions. It's belief in the absolute nature of these notions that limits us. The very nature of the mind is stupidity. This because it's inert. The mind has no life of its own. Hence, when it dies, purity and noble qualities arise. Some wise men refer to the pure mind as that state of utter purity that prevails in a liberated sage in whom the mind is dead. Again, purity is another yogic infatuation or obsession. But we can describe the pure mind as one which is not getting restricted or constricted by notions. Such a mind of the liberated sage is therefore full of noble qualities like friendliness, etc. The existence, satva, of such natural goodness in a liberated sage is known as satva, purity, etc. Hence, this is also called death of the mind, where form remains. The death of the mind, where even the form vanishes, pertains to the disembodied sage. In the case of such a mind, no trace is left. It is impossible to describe it in a positive way. This is because whatever you say about it is going to be limiting. In it there are neither qualities nor their absence, neither virtues nor their absence, neither light nor darkness, no notions at all, no conditioning, neither existence nor non-existence. It is a state of supreme quiescence and equilibrium. They who have risen beyond the mind and the intelligence, they reach that supreme state of peace. And again, this is the yogic idea. You imagine the yogic sage sitting there in the lotus position, completely imperturbable. But that's a limited understanding. It's an inner state. The sage, the true enlightened one, the true liberated one, is a dynamic individual. Their imperturbability is in their own awareness, not in a state of disappearing into themselves. So we need to be careful not to get caught up in these yogic notions.